Hi, this is Robert Rapier from R Squared Energy, and this is R Squared Energy TV. On this week's episode, I'd like to do a short presentation on biomass, the pros and cons of using it as an energy solution. People have very strong feelings one way or another about biomass, either believing that it can't be responsibly used or that it can be a major part of the solution to our energy problems. So I'd like to talk a little bit about both sides of that today. Keep in mind that we've been using biomass for thousands of years. We've been using it to heat our homes. We've been using it as fuel. We will use it for thousands of years hence. But we're currently using it at an unsustainable rate in some locations, and I'll show you a picture that demonstrates that a little bit later. Replacing our fossil fuel consumption at present rates with biomass is simply not possible. I've done the calculations with just oil. I'd be very surprised if we could replace more than about 10% of current oil consumption with biomass. And the reason is the photosynthetic efficiency is just too low. You know, the solar power that comes in, less than 1% of that gets converted into biomass. A professor a few years ago wrote a paper, and he calculated that every year the fossil fuels we use are equivalent to 400 years of ancient biomass that grew on the earth, and clearly that's not sustainable. Another point is that a lot of the renewable fuels that we talk about today are actually heavily dependent on fossil fuels. So they're not so much renewable fuels as mostly fossil fuels with a small renewable component. And corn ethanol falls into that. It doesn't have to, but it's heavily reliant on natural gas. If, for instance, the power for the ethanol distillery was supplied by maybe some of the excess biomass from the field, then corn ethanol would be truly more renewable fuel, because then the biomass itself is coming from the sun instead of the ancient biomass from natural gas. And that would be a more sustainable, more renewable situation, provided the soil quality could be maintained as you harvested some of the biomass off the land. Two presently very popular renewable fuel options that are heavily dependent on fossil fuels are cellulosic ethanol and algal biofuels. So both of those are only pseudo-renewable fuels. And again, like corn ethanol, maybe they could be truly renewable, but in the present state, it doesn't look like that's the way they're going to be used. So, but biomass has a role, and I heard a presentation from Mike Nickerson, who is the author of Life, Money, and Illusion, a couple of years ago, and he told this story, which I've since looked up and confirmed. In the 1600s, a Dutch biologist named Jan Baptist van Helmont did an experiment where he took an earthen vessel and he put in it 200 pounds of oven-dried soil, and he placed a willow branch in there, and he watered it for 5 years. And after 5 years, the tree weighed 169 pounds. But the vessel had only lost a few ounces. So the vast majority of that tree came from the carbon dioxide in the air. So this is where biomass can be sustainable, especially trees. The bulk of that biomass is not coming from the ground, it's coming from the air. And as long as you can return the nutrients back to the soil, then trees can be a very sustainable way to produce energy. Properly managed biomass, trees for instance will send down deep tap roots which can pull up nutrients that are otherwise inaccessible, and they can recycle those nutrients and concentrate them in the leaves and in the branches. And as long as when that biomass is harvested you leave behind the trees, you leave behind the branches and the leaves, then the soil quality can actually improve while you're providing energy. Now, of course, if you strip mine you can strip mine the topsoil by taking everything, taking the whole tree, and then that's when you get into a situation that looks like this. There's Haiti, which has basically taken all the biomass off their soil. They cut down all the trees and used for fuel. And there's the Dominican Republic, which is the green section of that map. And this shows that biomass definitely, if it's over harvested, can be devastating to the quality of the soil. But properly managed, biomass, I believe, has a role. We just have to make sure that we have safeguards in place that don't lead to us, clear cutting our forests and reducing the quality of the soil. I've heard some people say before that cutting a tree down is like murder. I don't believe that at all. I believe that farming trees, as opposed to farming some other forms of biomass, can be a very responsible, very sustainable way to produce energy in the long term. So with that, that's this week's episode. Please tune in next week. Thank you.